Hi, it's Ms. Sherwood and Jane, back for science. Today we're going to review animal adaptations and then talk a little bit about rainforest plants. If you remember, we talked about Jayne's paws yesterday. Let me see your paw. And how he has retractable claws inside. There we go. That help him grab onto things when he needs to. Oh, there's one right there. But he can also pull them back when he doesn't need them to keep them sharp. So when he's climbing a tree or hanging on to me and doesn't want to let go, he can push his claws out. And then when he's done, he can pull them back in. Let's look at some animals we talked about yesterday and what adaptations they have. So let's review animal adaptations, the behaviors and the body parts that animals have that help them live in their habitat. We talked about certain animals yesterday, so let's review them. Remember the sloth? The sloth has a body part that helps it climb trees to get away from predators. Helps it live in trees. It doesn't run away from predators because it's too slow. Remember what they were? Yeah, those long claws. The three-toed sloth had 3 of those claws. Then there was the jaguar. It was a carnivore. It is a carnivore. Eats other animals. What does it have that helps it with that? You can see in the picture. Yeah, those long, sharp teeth. Helps it catch its prey. A macaw is not a carnivore. It's an herbivore. It eats plants, but it eats seeds and nuts especially, and it's got something around its mouth to help it do that. Yeah, it's that strong, curved beak. Just like Jayne has his claws as an adaptation, all those animals have special body parts that help them survive. Okay, now we're going to move on to rainforest plants. Let's read a book. This is The Great Kapok Tree by Lynn Cherry. We're going to read this book to find out why this tree in specific and just plants and trees in the rainforest are so important. 2 men walked into the rainforest. Moments before, the forest had been alive with the sounds of squawking birds and howling monkeys. Now all was quiet as the creature watched the 2 men and wondered why they'd come. The larger man stopped and pointed to a great kapok tree. Then he left. The smaller man took the axe he carried and struck the trunk of the tree. Whack, whack, whack! The sounds of the blows rang through the forest. The wood of the tree was very hard. Chop, chop, chop! The man wiped off the sweat that ran down his face and neck. Whack, chop, whack, chop. Soon the man grew tired. He sat down to rest at the foot of the great kapok tree. Before he knew it, he was asleep. What kind of animal is that? A boa constrictor lived in the great kapok tree. He slithered down the trunk to where the man was sleeping. Then the huge snake slid very close to the man and hissed in his ear. Señor, this tree is a tree of miracles. It is my home, where generations of my ancestors have lived. Do not chop it down. Look at all these insects. And who's right next to the man? A bee. A bee buzzed in the sleeping man's ear. Señor, my hive is in this kapok tree, and I fly from tree to tree and flower to flower collecting pollen. In this way I pollinate the trees and flowers throughout the rainforest so more can grow. You see, all living things depend upon one another. Remember these guys? A troop of monkeys scampered down from the canopy of the kapok tree. They chattered to the sleeping man. Señor, we have seen the ways of man. You chop down one tree, then come back for another and another. The roots of these trees will wither and die, and there will be nothing left to hold the earth in place. When the heavy rains come, the soil will be washed away, and the forest will become a desert. A toucan, a macaw, and a cock of the rock flew down from the canopy. "Senor," squawked the toucan, "you must not cut down this tree. We have flown over the rainforest and seen what happens once you begin to chop it down. Many people settle on the land. They set fires to clear the underbrush, and soon the forest disappears. Where once there was life and beauty, only black and smoldering ruins remain." A bright and small, tree frog crawled along the edge of a leaf. In a squeaky voice, he piped in the man's ear. "Senor, a ruined rainforest means ruined lives, many ruined lives. You will leave many of us homeless if you chop down this great kapok tree." A jaguar had been sleeping along a branch in the middle of the tree. Hi, Luna. You want to hear the story? Thank you for getting off the page. Excuse her. A jaguar had been sleeping along the branch in the middle of the tree. Because his spotted coat blended into the light and shadows of the understory, no one had noticed him. Now he leapt down and walked over to the sleeping man. He growled in his ear. "Senor, the kapok tree is home to many birds and animals. If you cut it down, where will I find my dinner?" 4 tree porcupines swung down from branch to branch and whispered to the man. "Senor, do you know what we animals and humans need in order to live? Oxygen. And senor, do you know what trees produce? Oxygen. If you cut down the forest, you will destroy that which gives us life." Several anteaters climbed down the kapok tree with their young clinging to their backs. The anteater said to the sleeping man, "Senor, you are chopping down this tree with no thought to the future. And surely you know that what happens tomorrow depends upon what you do today. The big man tells you to chop down the beautiful tree. He does not think of his own children, who tomorrow must live in the world with no trees." A 3-toed sloth had begun climbing down from the canopy when the men first appeared. Only now did she reach the ground. Walking ever so slowly over to the sleeping man, she spoke in her deep and lazy voice. "Senor, how much is beauty worth? Can you live without it? If you destroy the beauty of the rainforest, on what would you feast your eyes?" A child from a nearby village who lived in the rainforest knelt over the sleeping man. He whispered, "Senor, when you awake, please look at us all with new eyes." The man awoke with a start. Before him stood the rainforest child, and all around him, staring, were the creatures who depended upon the great kapok tree. What wondrous and rare animals they were. The man looked about and saw the sun streaming through the canopy. Spots of bright light glowed like jewels in the dark forest. Strange and beautiful plants seemed to dangle in the air. The man stood and picked up his axe. He swung his arm as though to strike the tree. Suddenly he stopped. He turned and looked at the animals and the child. He hesitated. Then he dropped the axe and walked out of the rainforest. The author has a note in this book. "Dear readers, I wrote The Great Kapok Tree to let the world know what happens to the rainforest creatures and to the entire planet when rainforests are destroyed." So the author of The Great Kapok Tree wants us to know that a lot of rainforest land is being destroyed. Trees are being cut down. So the question to talk to your family about today is, why are rainforests so important? What do the trees and other plants do to help the rest of the rainforest? And that's kind of part of the assignment that you have. I want you to get your journals out, and in your journals write one sentence, something you learned from the book. Either what kind of plants there are, what kind of trees there are, and what do the plants and the trees do for the rainforest. and for other animals in the rainforest. How do these plants and trees help the rainforest? So before you leave, I have a couple of rainforest jokes. The book is upside down. Okay, what do you get when you cross a parrot with a centipede? Now remember, parrots are really noisy, and centipedes are those long bugs with a lot of legs. So what do you get when you cross a centipede with a parrot? A walkie-talkie. I like that one. And what does a toucan become after it's 3 days old? Remember, the toucan is that bird with a really, really long beak. It's my favorite. So what does a toucan become after it's 3 days old? 4 days old, just like the rest of us. So Jayne's over here. And wants to say goodbye, don't you, Jayne? He wants to say goodbye and see you next time for science.